But are you saying
And
he
he fails
failed
to
that?
do it every time.
Did he
hmm
fail that?
hmm
He did.
Yeah,
So then he lied.
that's not the first one.
What's going on? What's going on?
Hey, what's up, mate?
I'm good, man. Mr. L. I'll call you Mr. L.
Yeah, that's fine.
Hey, what's your religious background, man?
Um, I am a funny type of Christian, but I'm also not a Trinitarian either.
Okay.
So, um, there's many, many times that Jesus openly states that he can only do things that the Father allows or the Son
Sorry, just real
watches
quick.
that the Father
Do you
does.
believe that Jesus is God?
No,
Okay, cool.
no,
Gotcha. Gotcha.
no.
All right, but you believe in all the scriptures?
Mm, believe in what way? What do you mean?
Well, some people reject some of the books in the Bible and others don't. So it's good to kind of know what everyone's position is. There are some people who say, I reject Paul's letters. I'm like, oh, okay. It's different, but all right.
Uh, well, I wouldn't really. Paul has a lot of contradictions comparative to the gospel narratives with Jesus, anyway. I know at least off the top of my head, I can at least count 36 different times that Paul contradicts Jesus. But that's
36
not my biggest
times.
issue, at least.
And that's got to do with what
Um,
exactly?
the salvation issues to the way that Jesus was, to the way that he acted, what he actually taught, stuff like that. There's a
Okay.
lot of contradictions. Um,
Okay, so
but
Jesus, he's not God according
but
to the Bible from what you've seen. Why is that?
no, he would simply just be the son because he says it over and 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 over again.
Yep.
That without the Father's authority given unto him, he is nothing.
Okay, I
Right.
gotcha.
So I'm still confused on where Trinitarians are trying to push Jesus as God when I think it's Luke 14 literally states that Jesus can do nothing without the Father.
I agree.
Last time I checked, the Father can do anything without Jesus.
hmm
But I don't know.
I got you, man. So if you look into the gospel accounts, just from what we can see, do you believe that Jesus, well, should we say Jesus, the gospel writers will try and use the gospels as much as we can. Do you see that would you ever see that anybody in the gospel accounts would ever attribute some form of divinity to the Son?
I mean, you can see that, especially when you start getting to the latter parts, like Matthew 28 and the end of Luke and John, where you see them start praising, like in Matthew 28, they praised him before they went to the temple in the holy city. But outside of that, pre-resurrection, pre-crucifixion, Jesus actually is known to correct them. For instance, they say he's such a good teacher, and Jesus says, why do you call me good? There's only one good. He sits in heaven. Who am I? Which is an act of humbleness. I do know that, but it's just to show you that you know Jesus. It's kind of weird because to me, he gives a prayer to the Father in John 17. Um, well, the whole chapter is a prayer, really,
Yep.
but the very end of it, from not the very end, but from 20 verses 20 to 26 is very interesting to me because Jesus gives his disciples and anyone who believes the same glory that the Father gave unto him. What is Jesus doing there?
What do you mean?
If he sat here and he in chapter 17, Jesus asked for the glory. The Father gives the glory back to him that he had in heaven. At the end of chapter 17, Jesus then gives anyone who believes in him the same glory the Father gave to him.
So just real
What is he
quick,
saying there?
do you believe that the Son pre-existed his incarnation? Well, I believe his incarnation, but Do you believe he pre-existed? He's coming to Earth.
Mm. Yes and no. I mean, depends on what you mean by pre-existent. Like, I don't think his body's always existed.
Well, not so much the body, because we know
But
that's
the
flesh.
potential to his soul, probably, or spirit. Yeah,
Yeah,
you can
I
say
mean,
that.
because
Spirit.
you pointed out verse 5, right? So I would agree with you. The glory which I had with you before the world was. How would you understand that? Like, what would your position be on that?
Basically, it's like the king, like a king of a kingdom reuniting with his son, and the son asking for his authority that was given unto him underneath the king. So, if a king gives a prince the authority to rule an army, who's in control, the prince or the king?
Okay, so you're saying in this case that Jesus is the prince?
Yeah,
Okay, so he did exist before the world was created, right?
right.
And it
And
does have.
yeah, but like his body didn't, no.
Yeah,
But his
I agree with
soul,
you.
yes.
His body
Yeah,
didn't,
yeah.
because that's something that happens in the
Thousands
incarnation.
of years later.
Sorry?
Yeah. That comes a little later. Yeah.
I agree with you. So that means the Son always existed. He just did not come into human form until the incarnation, right?
Hmm.
All right, good. So then, what would you say his position is? So he's not a human, and he's not God. What is his position?
He's just, like I was saying earlier, he's just more like a prince underneath a king. He just has the authority that the king allows him, and once the king takes it back, he doesn't have it no more.
Cool. Did you have any scriptural references that we could go to
For,
just for that position?
uh, not off the top of my head, but I can definitely find some.
Yeah, please. That'd be great if you can. And while you're looking, I'm gonna take us to Hebrews chapter 1. Maybe a good starting point, and I'll let you have a quick search of that if you'd like. While you're searching, I'm just going to read this out for those who are listening and for yourself as well. So, in my position, I do believe that Jesus is God. Yes, absolutely. And is he one of the angels in heaven? No, because he's made higher than the angels. So, the Son himself has to be somebody, according to the scriptures, who's got all power and authority in heaven and on earth. So if he's got the authority that the Father has, he's got to be something close to it, which is what some people may say, that he's a lesser God or whatever it may be. But I'm just going to read the scriptures.
Hmm.
For which of the angels did he ever say, "You are my son, today I have begotten you"? This seems to be a very popular one that we read a lot. And again, I will be to him a father, and he shall be to me a son. But when he again brings the firstborn into the world, he says, "Let all the angels of God worship him." And of the angels, he says, "Who makes his son, who makes his angels spirits and his ministers a flame of fire." But to the Son, he says, "Your throne, O God, is forever and ever. A scepter of righteousness is the scepter of your kingdom." So, not too sure if you're probably still looking into that, but just in that scripture there alone, it tells us the Son, the Father who's talking to the Son, he says to him, "Your throne, O God." So he acknowledges that he's the throne. He also acknowledges that he's God as well. So it's a pretty clear-cut statement there. But yeah. Did you have a text that we could go through?
Um, I'm trying to look in John. I think it's John 14, but give me a second. I'm trying to look and see.
Oh,
Because I know
good.
it advocates him being like he's like the Prince of Peace or something like that. So that correlates from John into Isaiah somehow. I just can't remember how it goes.
Prince of Peace, Isaiah
Yeah,
9, sorry.
yeah, he would be that would be referring to Jesus, but it's in John. I think it's John 14:20 something. I just can't remember off the top of my head. I'm looking for
All right, while you have a look at that, I want to pull up the other scripture.
it. It says, "Peace I will leave to you, my peace I will give to you. I do not give you to you. I do not give to you as the world gives. I do not let your hearts be troubled, and I do not let them be afraid. And then we could correlate that to Isaiah 9, which would be the Prince of Peace.
Okay, cool. So in John chapter 14, is he talking about a prince there, or is he talking about the peace that he gives to his disciples?
Well, he's more or less giving peace to all people, being a base rock for him through the Father.
Gotcha. So it's not just a title, it's an act of something as well. So he is that peace as well. Would that be correct?
Yeah.
So in Isaiah 9...
I mean, to be a prince isn't just a title to me either. A prince is more complicated than that.
Yeah. No, I gotcha. But that means Prince of Peace, he's not just claiming a title, but he's actually the Prince of Peace, right?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So let's go to Isaiah chapter 9. Sorry?
Given from the Lord, yeah. You're right.
Gotcha. Let's go to Isaiah chapter 9, right? Isaiah chapter 9, verse 6, that's the one you were talking about. Verse 6, it says,
9.
For unto
you're
us...
You're right there on it.
Sorry?
You're on it. You got it.
For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government will be upon his shoulders. The government will be upon his shoulder, and his name will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Yeah, that's the title that's given to him. Okay, cool. So then, by your definition, right, he is the prince, but he's also the mighty God. And he's also the everlasting Father.
Yeah, that's where they would like to say that. But then it's confusing when Jesus also states that whoever does not love me does not keep my words.
Before we go there, because I only wanted to use your definition, your position, right?
Yeah.
So your position is he's not just claiming a title there. He is actually the Prince of Peace. So this is not just a title, but it's his authority, it's his position. So then is it also his position?
But you wouldn't call the Father a prince, though, would you?
Sorry?
You wouldn't call the Father a prince, would you?
Well, just trying to understand your position, right? Mm-hmm. Is he also, by the way that you defined it, is he also the mighty God, the wonderful counselor, and the everlasting Father?
No, he's not the Father, no.
Okay, so he's not any of those other things, he's only the Prince of Peace.
Well, he'd be a counselor, but anybody that is a Prince of Peace would do that. That's what counselorship is.
And what about mighty God?
Like, would he be Yahweh? Not in the way that people think he is, no.
Okay, so in what sense would he be God?
He would be God as, what is it called when you give someone a titleship, but they're not really. Dang it. What is it called when a leader holds power, but they're not the actual leader? Proxy? Is that what you call it? A proxy leader?
A proxy? Okay. Yep, I gotcha.
I think that'd be the word. So he would just be mighty God in the aspect that the Father allows him to have such powers or such authority, but can be stripped of it at any time, such as any prince can. And we know this because outside of just Jesus alone, we watch God do that to others. So, I mean, the biggest story that we know is the fall of Lucifer. Well, that's not really his name, but the fall of Satan. But that's not really the equivalent.
I guess just so we can kind of stick on this one here. So if he's just somewhat of a proxy to him being God, right? So there's God who's on this side. Jesus is a proxy of God. So would he somewhat be God because he's the proxy of God? Because if he is the proxy of God, wouldn't he have to have his divine qualities as well? His divine properties, essentials, wouldn't that have to be a part of it as well?
What do you mean by divine?
I mean, if somebody's going to be God's proxy in this sense, he's going to be the mighty God. So then how does he show that he's the mighty God?
How does Jesus show he's the mighty God?
Yeah.
He doesn't.
So then he's not a proxy.
No, what he would be, a proxy would be someone that's able to hold a position of authority while the authority is gone.
Okay, so he
When
has
Jesus
the
was
authority.
when Jesus was roaming around, well, I say roaming around when he was on the earth, and he was explaining to people, the authority comes through the Father, not through him.
All right, gotcha. So he's got
Which
all
would
the
explain
authority.
that any time that the Father can say, "Okay, I'm done," snap his finger, I'm taking full control, and Jesus loses everything.
But in that moment where he is the bearer of God, he's the image of God here on earth. Is he God in that moment to show people who God is?
Mm, not in the Father's aspect, no. He'd be greater than an angel. Like when they come down and they see him and they tremble in their feet and all that stuff, he'd be greater than they would. But he wouldn't be the equivalent of the Almighty, like pillar of fire Father God. No.
Well, the thing is, when he's on earth, he's made lower than the angels in Hebrews chapter 2. He's actually in a lower position than the angels. So if he's a proxy for God while he's here on earth, but yet he was made lower than the angels while he was here on earth, wouldn't you see that as a contradiction? Because now the mighty God is in a lesser position than the angels themselves.
Well, that should automatically tell you that that's not the mighty God.
Well, no, I'm just trying to understand
God,
your
well,
position
in
on
all
this.
reality, God himself, he could do that if he wanted to. But what he was saying there was basically he was created less than human or less than angels was by rank, not by position of where you were. Man is greater than angels. Remember that.
So then his position was lower than angels?
That he made himself, yeah. He did it to himself.
Jesus
Well,
did it
he
himself
didn't. The
or
Father did it to himself. The Father put him at that rank.
okay, cool. Just so we can
Because he's
understand your
supposed to
position,
be
right?
no more than a servant, or what we would call a slave. And we would both agree that slaves didn't have the same rights, authorities, powers, or anything like that.
Okay. So then with Jesus being lower than the angels, he's lower than him by his position, but his rank was
Mm-hmm.
higher than the angels.
What do you mean?
Uh,
No,
um.
when he came down to earth, he made himself lesser than the angels, making
Okay.
his rank as low as a slave,
So who made
trying to be
himself lower
equivalent
than
to
the
us.
angels?
God turned Jesus lesser than that. That's why he was created that way.
So then how can he be the image of the mighty God? How can he be the mighty God if he's lesser than the angels?
Well, how do you have an image of an imageless God?
Well, if he's somebody that's supposed to be the mighty God here on earth, would it make sense
He
that he's
never
the mighty
claims that.
God and also lower than the angels?
He never claimed to be the mighty God.
Well, that's what we're reading, aren't
He out
we?
of his own mouth never said it.
Well, you say here in Isaiah chapter 9, verse 6, right? You do agree that this is
Mm-hmm.
Jesus. So you do agree that he's the Prince
It
of
can be
Peace.
equivalent to talking to him. Yeah.
Sorry?
That's why I asked you earlier, would you call the Father a prince?
I think either way, when I asked you your position on this, the Prince of Peace, is that a position, not just a title? You said yes, right?
Uh,
So then by
Yeah.
default, all of this should be something that's a position that's attributed to Jesus, not just some title, right?
Okay.
So then,
Well, let me ask you this: if a king sends his son out to a village and says that you are now lesser than they are until you learn your lesson or teach them something, did I strip you of what you actually are? Are you still a person? Are you still the thing? And did I just make you lesser than that, or were you just always lesser?
I don't understand your question, to be honest.
Okay, let's say I'm the king and you're my son, the prince,
Mm-hmm.
and I send you out to the village and I say that you are lesser than they are. Did I create you lesser? Did I create you from the very get go lesser than they are, or you turned into it?
I don't know. I think
You don't know if
from
you
your
don't know if
position,
you held a position of
I actually
prince and I
don't
stripped you
understand
of
it,
it,
to be
what am I
honest with
doing?
you, because you've got different
If I get
positions.
if you're in the position of prince,
Yes.
right, and I strip the prince title from you and make you a servant unto the people, were you born a servant or were you created a servant?
Born a servant.
How were you born a servant if you were born a prince?
I think your
Are
analogy
princes
doesn't make
servants?
sense. I'm trying to connect what you're saying, this hypothetical, with what we're actually discussing here. So by position,
Right.
he's
What
the
I'm
Prince
showing
of
you is
Peace, right?
the
But
God,
hold on,
God
1 second, 1
Father
second,
has
1
sent him
second.
out.
So by position, he's the Prince of Peace, not just by title, but with these other names: Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father. What would that be?
Mm-hmm.
So these are attributed to Jesus, but in what sense?
Mm-hmm. I mean, it can come in many different senses, but most people take it in a literal sense. But my question is why would Jesus not? Why would he sit here over and over and over again saying that he's the Son and not, what Isaiah is proclaiming him to be?
Do you take the Prince of Peace in a literal sense?
Do I think he's a literal Prince of Peace? No.
Okay, so what
It's
does that
just
mean to you?
it's just something that he's supposed to do.
Which is,
Bring peace. What is the Prince of Peace supposed to do?
so he's a prince.
What's his job?
It's okay, cool. So is it his job as well to be the mighty God?
Well, if he failed to do the Prince of Peace part, do you think that he's still mighty God?
How did he fail to do that part?
Are there still wars? Are there
Okay,
still issues? Are there still problems? Are there still, how would I say, calamities in the world?
so Jesus is not the Prince of Peace then.
That's a title given on to him from himself. I'm just giving you what he's saying he said.
So do
He
you
calls
believe
himself
from your
this stuff.
position that he's the Prince of Peace? Because this has been your position from the start, that this is the Prince of Peace. That's his position from
I'm
the
just going off
beginning.
of what he says he is.
Hold on. That's been his position from the beginning. Before the world was, you said, this is what his position is, the Prince of Peace. But it seems like what you're saying is that he's failed that. So he's not really the Prince
Yes.
of Peace.
No, what I've been pointing out is what he says he is. He himself is what he says he is.
But are you saying
And
he
he fails
failed
to
that?
do it every time.
Did he fail
Mm-hmm.
that?
Mm-hmm.
He did.
Yeah.
So then he lied.
That's not the first one. Let me ask you a question right quick. Do you
Okay.
believe in Jesus full-heartedly?
So you're not a Christian.
I never said that. I'm just not going to sit. I could just sit here and point out a lie. It's just easy to do.
So you don't believe in the Bible at all. You don't believe that anything about
I
the
never said
Bible
that
at all.
either.
What's that?
Never said that either. Never said that either.
Okay, so that's why
The
I asked you
Bible
in the
has
beginning.
kernels of truth
Hold
in it.
on, that's why
Yeah.
I asked you in the beginning. What's your religious background?
I told you I'm a Christian, but in a funnier way.
So you
Like
you see what I mean?
I think Jesus
You see the games that you're
existed. I
playing.
think that
So
Jesus
you are
did
saying you're a
things.
Christian, but in a funnier way. So what does that mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because I want to be able to have a conversation, good faith with you, knowing what your position is, so that we can actually have a good conversation. So what do you believe about? Okay, you're a Christian in a funny way. In what sense?
Mm-hmm.
Do you not believe the Bible? Because it seems like you don't, but I'm not too sure.
Well, I wouldn't take all of it into 100% accuracy, no, but that's because of man's error. The does have errors in it. But
So then we
I
can't
will
really
say a
have a
lot of the things
conversation.
that what Jesus did and said could be true.
But do you notice how we can't have a proper
I believe that they
conversation?
are.
Because whatever you can't answer for, you're like, well, that's what Jesus said. Well, you know what I mean? Like we can't really have a conversation good faith because you're just gonna reject whatever you can't give an answer for. It
How am I
seems.
rejecting you if I'm using Jesus' words? Jesus is the one that broke.
All right, next. Very confused individual.